Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at It's Jessinio. Wow, okay, so I don't think any of us really thought that this was a game that we were going to go in and dominate. You know, not at all. Chelsea are a superior team to us. I think we can all say that, like, it's fine, right? But to see the way the game unfolded was still really disappointing to me, because no matter how poor I think our team is, I still think we should be more competitive, more organized, and more confident in what we're doing tactically. Because this is two games in a row where, even though we lost the games, it was almost like in a comical way, like very comical. I mean, if you think about how Pablo Marie threw himself to the ground when Lukaku just kind of ran over him for the first goal. Reece James is wide open again on that right hand side for Chelsea, left hand side for us. Comical, it's just they stepped off of us, kind of just let us give them back the ball, and then 2-3 passes, they're in our box again. I want to get this right because I think Scott put it up, and I just want to make sure I get this right. Give me 1 second, because honestly, the amount of chances that they got was scary, which showed me that our whatever plan we had, it didn't work. It just didn't. Scott Chelsea had 21 shots with 5 big chances. So that just shows you that's unacceptable. Even if the team is superior to you, 21 shots and 5 big chances means that basically they just ran all over you. And what we kind of spoke about before the game was Chelsea don't really create high quality chances. They create a lot of chances, but they're never really they don't create like high XG chances all the time. We allowed them such space and such territory in and around our box that they were creating. I mean, some of the times that it was like Havertz and Lukaku were just dribbling around in our penalty area. And if we had not closed our legs quick enough, that would have been in the back of the net. It's just shambolic. It's just not good enough. And I don't care, again, how poor we are not that bad. We're not. I watched Southampton play Manchester United earlier this morning, and I don't think Southampton is as good as we are. They tied the game 1-1 at home. And again, a team that's far superior to you, but they didn't look out of the game at any point in time. We look out of games a lot. And a lot of it just really comes down to, I think, the tactical naivety of the coach. 3-4-3 was on today. For me, it was on. If you know you're going into the game, you're going to concede some possession, because we did it anyway. Concede possession, stay tight. Don't give them easy possession and positional dominance so closely to your goal, and then try to play on the counter. That's more acceptable than what we did, which to me, we looked naive. The space in the midfield, the way that they bypassed us in 1-2 passes, there was no competitiveness, no nothing. And it's just not good enough, And for me, I just feel we know Arteta's out of his depth. I would say I think Arteta's out of his depth, and I think a lot of other people do. I don't think anybody can sit there and say, well, you're really far off there. He is. Even the look on his face is just almost like a look of defeat. This is somebody who, when he first came in on the sideline, barking orders, getting the team up, team looks fired up, almost to like pretty much like a dead. He's just dead there on the sideline, just kind of watching things unfold. And it's just shocking to me, even after 15 minutes of seeing that Chelsea were wide open on that side, he didn't just humble himself a little bit and just go into a 3-4-3, try to get it tight, or at least tell somebody to just stay on Reece James if you don't want to change everything. It just reeks of naivety and arrogance for me. And so, again, knew we were probably going to lose, but the way it unfolded was just so bad. And I see a lot of people on Twitter with the, well, when Thomas comes back, when Ben White comes back, when Gabriel comes back. You guys, I think this is going to be a broken season as well. I don't think we can count on having our best 11 out there for a long run of games. I just don't think so. We have a COVID outbreak in our camp at the moment. So he needs to learn how to adjust. And if he doesn't want to adjust based on the personnel that he has, and he's just willing to throw us out there and just see if it works, then why should we be backing this guy anyway? Like, I think he has a very, very short span left if he continues on with this. We know we're going to lose to Man City. And then what happens after that? If we don't have our perfect starting 11, is he going to be unable to adjust things? Are we still going to be wide open in the midfield? Like, it's just shocking, so I don't know. You guys. There's about 72 of you guys watching on all platforms. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're going to talk winners and losers, man of the match. There's going to be probably very little options for that, but we'll go through it anyway. I'm going to bring on my panel. I have Gunner King here, George, Souls will be here, and hopefully Harry. We'll talk it through. Make sure you guys are sharing this, liking the video, getting in the chat box, letting us know what you think. And we'll just go ahead and get started now. I'm going to bring Gunner King in. He's actually at the Emirates now. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah. So we kind of talked like after or just like kind of behind the scenes. You're at the Emirates right now. What are you feeling following, this 2-0 loss? I don't think anybody could think that we were going to dominate the game, but what shook out there? How did you feel in the stadium watching the game?
So I mean, I've come for the protest, so I wasn't actually in the stadium, but I watched the game in a nearby local, where I just saw a game of boys against men. I think we've gone behind 16 times at half time without winning a single one of those games. I think we've only drawn like 2 or 3 of those. So whilst we're looking at the technical profile of players, I think we're getting hung up on that and we're getting lost in the source of that and not looking at the mental requirements of players coming into this club, like actual leaders, people that can dig their heels in deeply when you're in the trenches. And I think that really showed today. I think there was a lot going on with a number of seats that were empty. So I think at the moment, whilst a lot of people have decided to just go straight home, some people are staying to protest against the Kroenkes. And, I think seeing the empty seats at an Arsenal game is really going to sort of drum the message home as well. And that's just a sad thing, I'm here in celebration corner. I've got the legend himself over there. I mean, how much longer are people going to be queuing up to get photos next to this guy? If we carry on in this current trajectory, it's just going to be a footnote to a once successful history, because right now what we're seeing on the pitch it's nowhere near where all of this came from.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's I don't know. It really just brings it right back down. Like, I do think the signings that we've made are good signings.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're bad players. And I do think longer term, they would improve us. But seeing Jack out there getting bypassed, watching Lokonga try to run the midfield, the club's negligence in terms of not bringing in a proper midfielder is really slapping them across the face really early in the season, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's a case of they've brought in good players, but they've brought in too many that balance on the side of being squad players that you would want to rely on in the event that other players aren't available. Ben White is the one player that you could say we bought for an immediate impact on the first team. So it's a case of getting the balance right. Like Tavares and Lokonga. I mean, Lokonga's looked good, I think, in every game that we've seen him in. Today he looked like one of the bigger threats. He was running and passing out of press. He was, tenacious, looking to win the ball back. He got a yellow card, I think, out of frustration. But you can see there's a player there. But signing him in isolation is akin to it not being worth signing him at all. Almost, you could argue, because he's not getting enough help out there from players that we're buying to directly impact the first team. And I think we haven't done enough of that whilst we've done good signings that in the longer term will acquit us well. For the immediate short term, we've needed to make more inroads into the quality of our first team 11. I don't think we've done enough to do that. And the concern is there with like a week less, well, just over a week left of the window. How much headway are we going to make into doing that? And I agree. I think central midfield is the area. Seeing Basuma get an assist from a tackle yesterday, that's the number one target I've wanted all window, but anyone. Not because he's the best player that we've been linked to, but the most necessary archetype player that we have needed to put into our midfield and improve it and to be able to control it in midfield. And, we just didn't have that today.
So if you were, Josh Kroenke was at the game today, he was up there. Who knows if he could comprehend what was actually going on the pitch, but he knows we lost and he could hear the boos, from my knowledge they were booing the guys, and, it is what it is. But if you're Josh Kroenke, are you looking at maybe the lack of quality that we have on the field, or are you starting to look at the manager like maybe you're the issue? Because we may not have the quality that Chelsea has, but to go out there and look the way that we looked and not set up tactically in a way that would allow us to be tough to beat, because we weren't tough to beat. We gave away 21 shots and 5 big chances. If you're the uppers, that make decisions, are you looking at Arteta, or are you thinking I need to put my hand in my pocket and start spending some money?
To be honest, I'd be looking at both. If I was Josh Kroenke personally, I would be looking at both, and I would be looking beyond that as well. I would be looking at the whole setup, the whole backroom setup. Is it set up to get the best available for the manager in a most timely fashion? Are the right people in play there? I'll be looking at the manager. I'll be looking at the players on the pitch, and I'll be looking at myself as well, and just being like, what more could I have done? I've maintained, like, Arteta in or out for me is just like a surface layer of like where our problems are. As much of that is the conditions that like someone like Arteta are allowed to work in. If we contrast United, whilst their manager has more experience than Arteta, but considerably little in a managerial sense, they've made sure that they've got quality players to come in to be able to help him. And 4 points out of 6 for them isn't terrible. And they've got world-class players ready on the bench to start for the season. Didn't even start them because they want to bed them in properly. That's organized. That's cohesive. They've identified what they've needed, and they've gone out and they've got it fairly quickly. They've only got 2 players, and whilst we've got 3, but those 2 were for an immediate impact into the first team. And even though they haven't played, those guys coming and being on the bench, seeing Varane at the game last week, being unveiled at that game, that lifts the mood and the morale of the players, of the fans, of the coach. And by contrast, you're not really, as you said, these are good signings, but I think Lokonga is getting a bit of a rough deal. Being thrown in now and being expected to change our fortunes on his own.
But this is what we do, though.
It's the only new signing that played today.
To me, this is what we do. We bring in these promising players and throw them in and say, save us. And really, if we were a proper team, in my opinion, oh gosh, my dog's going to start barking. But I just feel like Lokonga would be coming off of the bench in this game. And I know that some people would be like, well, that's why Thomas Partey needs to come back. But are we really sure that Thomas is going to be able to sustain the entire season? And should we still be just kind of like living and dealing with Xhaka, But thank you so much for coming on and doing your reaction. I really appreciate it. we'll definitely talk to you soon. Get home safe. And yeah, bye. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring George in here. Hey, George, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good. We have a super chat here from Usopp. Usopp says, what's our back four missing, holding, ragdoll, and injury prone? I mean, I don't know. The back four was what it was. It's just not good enough, but thank you so much for your super chat. I don't even remember Cedric really doing anything, to be honest, because I think they were primarily on Tierney's side, to be honest. But George, I don't know. I don't even know where to start. I mean, we were kind of in our group chat talking about, we should have went into a 3-4-3. I know that maybe we would have got the same result, but maybe we've been a little bit harder to beat. I can't look at what we did today and say we were difficult to beat. I think we were quite easy to kind of create chances against, which isn't normal for what we have been kind of getting from Arteta. Last season, it was, we're hard to beat, but we don't score goals. Now we're not really doing either. Do you think we need to be more patient knowing that we have some of our key players missing? Because I'm starting to feel like, and we talked about this backstage, that if we have to have perfect conditions in order to get through the season, I don't think we'll get through it with Arteta. He doesn't seem to have the ability to change in game. Even if he makes a mistake on tactics, which I think he did, he's not able to switch it up. And so if we're going to have these inconsistencies, which I feel like we can kind of say like, okay, we're not going to have our best 11 all the time. Do we just continue to drop points? Like, what the heck do we do?
Well, I think there needs to be a consistency in both criticism and expectation, and I don't think I'm finding both. So the first thing that I'm going to say is 3-4-3 was absolutely the play. It wasn't right tactically. And in fact, if you're going to go 4-2-3-1, I think I said in our group chat, is he putting Saka 10? And there was a reason when I saw the lineup that I thought he would put Saka 10, and it was because I felt as though that danger side was always on the left. Okay, in terms of if you look at Chelsea, that's really where their overloads lie. Yeah, they have Alonso, but typically how they're going to function with where Lukaku likes to roam and enter, it was always going to come down that channel. And so for me, getting Saka, who wasn't fit, to participate on the wing, and again, wasn't tracking back, and he was really poor the entire half. He let Reece James have the entirety of the flank, and it was just poor. But I was thinking, oh, he would be in the 10, and you would put Emile Smith-Rowe, who's had a preseason, who should have been doing that hard graft on the wing, and he would do it, would have been a much smarter choice for the tactics, even though I'm not a fan of what he went with. So there's a couple mistakes there. So it wasn't just you set up wrong, but you were also, with the tactics you chose, I think wrong in where you oriented your personnel. So there's two things there. And then alternatively, I don't understand what people's expectations were with over 5 starters missing, with 8 people outside of the first team against a Chelsea team who are very, very good. And we always thought, even with the first 11 of starting quality between these two games, margins would always decide things. I think the 2-0 and the big chance is a little bit disingenuous, to be honest. When you do look at some of our big chances, it was 5-3. Not statistically huge. I'm upset about the quality of chances, but this is what Chelsea play. They do this. They do this quite regularly, really, to everyone. It's not just us. They do it to top 6 teams, to great teams. And for me, my biggest issue was our Mikel not doing the tactics to make us succeed. That was more my issue with the game. I don't think there was a us not trying. I don't think there was us not necessarily forcing play. I think in the first 15, 20 minutes, we were on top of both halves, and then it dwindled. And then it was very sluggish, us affording the wing. They didn't even have to do too much. Like Lukaku had Mari kind of absolutely isolated the whole game. It was really, really poor. And he was getting drawn in, and it was poor from Bukayo. Like, you have to criticize him. I love him, but he has to come back and help that side, right? Like that has to be a tactical change. If you're either not going to have him do that, get him off, get somebody that will be doing that. So I think there's a lot of issues there. But I think the first penalty was absolutely that was a penalty in terms of Bukayo. I don't understand really why that isn't being talked about. I think it was really quite clear. Bukayo's ahead. Reece James clatters, and look, it's a mix of legs. It absolutely was a penalty in an area of the game that I think we could have done better. I think fundamentally what I'm looking at right now is a team void of their technical leaders, void of a voice with Mikel. I don't think he is being anywhere near what we should be expecting at this point, because for me, he's dying by his 4-2-3-1 sword. He's dying by that kind of tactic. I don't really agree with it. But if you're going to do that, then at least put the players in the right setup to do it. I still really struggle to understand why we didn't match up, why we had a game plan. In fact, we were one of the first to stop Chelsea last season. Let's have it right. And I just don't know why he didn't do that game plan. But I mean, even today, like it's just poor. Like if you do that setup, you got to have Saka inside, let Pepe run, let Martinelli run. We didn't do that. They were starved of service. I'm seeing people say that, Martinelli was horrible. I don't think he had service. I think he worked hard, and it was just a team that was disjointed. There was no back to front connection. And at the same token, though, I look how many of those first 11s would have helped with a connection. Like, I'm wondering if we were to go 3-4-3 and we were to do this, would your chances have changed? Unlikely. If you were to sit back, would your criticism of multiple chances being 20-5 have changed? Probably not. Would the distance of margin between games have been different? Probably not. With Ben White out, I really feared for this game. I really felt that we lost it before we started. But then Mikel chooses things that you can get right. I think as a coach, what most would have excused was the 3-4-3, because at least you would have expected a loss, but at least it was the best way to get a win. And I think that's the dichotomy here. I just don't think that it was as poor as what people were saying. I think we had really great passages of play, but we just ultimately didn't set up properly, and that's going to be your Achilles heel. So I think you should be doing better, personally. So my initial.
All right, I want to thank Harry for joining us. Thank you so much. But before I get your thoughts on the game, Pramod put in a super chat. Thank you so much. Pramod says, reason why I wanted this team to move away from Xhaka to some tackly and athletic versus a passer. I hope Arteta understands its importance. And that's a lot of what I saw today. Like, I guess, and I know, like, I'm consistent when I say that I think Granit Xhaka is a good player. Some people don't want to hear it. He is a good player in a certain system next to certain people in certain leagues. The weather kind of has to be perfect for it to go good for him today. And he didn't really have that. He's played for me, his best football for us next to Thomas Partey, who's basically a world-class midfielder, or next to Ceballos in a very conservative system that doesn't require him to do a lot of running. We know what his limitations are. We know how they get exploited. And I saw from minute one that Chelsea decided, well, when he gets the ball, just smash him. Just smash him. He'll be pressed off the ball. And midfield-wise, without Thomas Partey, we are very, very weak. Whether Granit is there or not, we're weak. Our options are Elneny, Granit, and Lokonga. Lokonga is a very good young player. My man of the match. Best player on the pitch for Arsenal. Not ready to push this team forward, period. And should not be asked to. If we were in the right situation where we didn't decide it was okay not to bring in a midfielder, then he's ideally coming off of the bench for somebody else. The idea that we should be limiting ourselves to this midfield is just stupid, because midfield is where the game is lost and won, in my opinion. And we lose constantly when we have a midfield that's just not good enough. It's just not. The options we have in that pivot are not good enough. And I think it's also a big reason why our transition is off. We don't create enough chances. They slow the game down too much. It's a lot to take in, and Harry, I don't want it to be like a go ahead and stick up for your boy thing, because we know, like I'm saying, Granit is a good player. But for you, like when you're watching the game and you were in the stadium today, what did you see from a midfield perspective? Are we not missing something that allows us to be more competitive? Because it just kind of seemed like we were being bypassed. What are your thoughts on how the midfield just kind of wasn't up to scratch today?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Xhaka was pretty hideous today, to be honest. In possession, he was loose. There was a few really dodgy touches early on, and I was thinking, oh, this feels like a Granit Xhaka day. And then I think maybe he got a ball back to his face or something, and then even after that, there was some really iffy passes, and then I noticed that Xhaka wanted to almost play football less and just almost go through people or try to make some risky challenges against Chelsea because he knew he just couldn't get near Jorginho and Kovacic, and then obviously Kante when he came on. So central midfield, I thought we were poor. I was surprised that you said Sambi was man of the match. Maybe I didn't look at him closely enough during the game, and he just kind of bypassed me. But I didn't just see any control in the midfield at all. I didn't just see enough want to get on the ball. I didn't see Sambi coming deeper enough to get on the ball and really saying to like Bernardo, give it to me now, I'll take it now. I didn't see enough of that. But I might be wrong. I might just need to watch the game again. There's so much going on when you're watching football for the first time live in a long time. So it's really hard to analyse what players did well. But I can tell you what we didn't do well. And Granit Xhaka, had a stinker today. And obviously all of the things that we know that Granit Xhaka can't do were exposed today. And I fully expected them to because, Chelsea are a top team. So they dominated that midfield. But then in the same respect, there were times when we, had decent passages of play. But then that felt like maybe that was because we were bypassing the midfield and almost going long and then winning the ball up in Chelsea's half and creating chances off that. But yeah, it is worrying that Granit Xhaka can drop those stinkers, but we know that sometimes that will happen, and it just highlights the importance of someone like Thomas Partey. But I do think a Xhaka and Lokonga partnership, I do think that can work, and I do think they can grow. And I know Lokonga is young, but I don't think he can't handle that pressure. I just think today we are coming up against an opponent who are far better than us, and that's it. So I don't want to make any too many drastic or dramatic conclusions.
I just feel like we're at this point where we're really trying to sift through to find positives from our games because, and this is just maybe just from this game, maybe, but it just feels like we're kind of like, okay, well, we had a decent passage of play here. We had a decent passage of play there. I watch almost every single game in the Premier League. I don't really see teams playing this way, where it just feels like boys against men type of vibes, when you play against a bit better teams. I didn't get that's that. What I got today.
No, I didn't get that. Well, I tell you what, when I got there just on time for kickoff, and I was pleasantly surprised by our opening 15 minutes. I felt really enthusiastic. I was also delighted with the fans and the atmosphere and that bite that we had, and it was really, really vocal and it was loud and it felt that everyone was united. And I think the players kind of fed off that energy, and I think it worked both ways. But I was relatively happy with the first 15 minutes. But obviously, what felt like Chelsea's first attack, I'm sure it wasn't. They go and score, and then the fans felt dejected, the players felt dejected. But I felt for moments in that game we were competing. We weren't competing in the way that we want to compete, i.e. dominating possession and playing really nice football. It almost had to turn it into a battle. One of our best phases of play came after Kieran Tierney just ran, closing people down for like 10 seconds. And then, the fans got geared up for it. And then suddenly, the narrative changed a little bit. But honestly, I don't feel like it was men against boys. I just think it's a team who are superior compared to us, playing in a system that works really well with their players. Everyone knows exactly what they're doing. And now they've got Lukaku up there who can basically hold off anyone, bring other people into play. James was bombing down the right wing. I didn't feel like it was men against boys. I just felt like it was a better team against a worse team. And that's it for me. But, football is such fine margins. And whilst Chelsea won pretty comfortably, if we get that early goal, if that Rob Holding header goes in, the whole game changes. So, if anything, I came away from today's game maybe not feeling proud, but I thought if I'm going to lose away, I'd rather it losing like this. We tried, we kept going, we didn't give up, and there were just times when Chelsea were clearly better than us, and that was it. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't get men against boys vibe, but maybe I'm just being a little bit blind to it. I don't know.
Sometimes
I didn't
different.
either.
Oh, go ahead.
I didn't get the men against boys vibes. And look, I hear the frustration, but then I do ask people, like, you're missing your entire spine at this moment in time against the European champions. And if you're going to say that you wanted to dominate more, but just slightly more, without your first team options. I'm just struggling to understand it. I really am. I think you have to levy the criticism properly. For me, forfeiting the wide channels is a rookie mistake. That's naive from the manager, and that's naive from a tactical setup that was on in the first half. I completely agreed with Harry. I thought the first 15 minutes was us, and it was against the run of play, but it was coming. It was always coming because Saka was not kind of tracking back even from the first minute. I felt that he was not fit. I don't know what you felt, Harry, but there was loose touches that I don't associate with Bukayo. I think he was, one of the worst on the pitch, really, to be honest with you. And it was striking because he also had our best chances. And so that's totally a story with Bukayo. But I thought Nicolas Pepe was actually amazing. He was probably the standout player for me in the first half. I thought he was getting on the ball.
That's so weird. I thought Pepe had a stinker, but maybe it's just
so.
I thought
I thought he was getting on the ball. I thought he was forcing the issue. He was trying to come inside. For me, I thought he was on a right-hand side that was bereft of really any options. Nobody looking to show for him. He was showing, and I thought it was good. It gave us an out ball. But look, at the same token, I'm not going to sit there and say I expected us to win that game. I thought it would be a lot closer than we did. But then once Ben White was out, it was like, okay, I'm fighting a losing battle at this point. I'm getting people that we don't want against a tactical striker that's beautiful for them. If you could picture a center back pairing for Romelu Lukaku to face, I think you couldn't get a better matchup than Rob Holding and Pablo Mari. And I think this is bad luck. Like, there's a difference for me. But at the same token, you got to levy kind of criticism at the manager for not just recognizing it. But for me, the big issue was, okay, fine, you want to go with this 4-2-3-1. Cool, I don't agree with it. I'm not on board with it. But if you do, at least put Saka in the 10. The kid's not fit. Like, put Emile Smith-Rowe to track back, because he would have. And I think that would have stopped the overloads that were happening, because it was so simple. It really was. Lukaku didn't even have to do much. He went in field. Mount had excellent game, by the way. I don't know. I didn't really see that on the timeline, but Mount was making runs, drawing out Tierney all game, and it was beautiful. Like, he was the reason. It wasn't Reece James. Reece James offered an option, but Mount was the complete reason that this was successful. He was destroying us all over the pitch, floating into really dangerous areas, off the ball movements. He was excellent. I just wanted to give a shout out because I thought he was their best player personally for me. Romelu will get the highlights, but Mason Mount literally made the goals for him with his movement.
Just quickly on Saka, like, I don't feel like that was a fitness issue. I feel like that was a tactical instruction, which is obviously a really, really poor one. But it felt like he was told to almost stay on Azpilicueta, stay up, don't track back, maybe to force James back the other way, because Pepe went deep. Pepe would follow Alonso all the way back. To the point where that's where I thought Pepe was almost ineffective, because when the ball was going higher up, I didn't feel like he was close enough to Martinelli or to Emile Smith-Rowe or Saka. But it was almost like Saka purposely didn't track back, and I couldn't understand it. If it's a fitness issue, fair enough. I just felt like it was a tactical thing, because it was so glaringly obvious that James had the whole right-hand side just to do what he wanted. And then I couldn't believe that Xhaka's not dropping in, or Xhaka's not covering a little bit more to the left. So that's the thing that I couldn't understand, that tactical instruction, or if it is down to Saka's fitness. But either way, it was, I'm sure you spoke about it, but it was just so obvious that it was going to come. So obvious. And it's really, really, it just felt naive. And whether, I blame Arteta for that if it's a tactical instruction. But then I'm also thinking, like, are the players not communicating with each other? Because Kieran Tierney, there's a few times he's gestured infield to Mari or to like Saka, like, I'm on my own here. But then why isn't anyone actually demanding that someone is tracking back? Or why isn't Kieran Tierney shouting at Xhaka or Saka to say, like, get here?
Tierney was being killed. Like, Tierney was not being protected by anybody. If Saka wasn't coming back because of whatever reason it was, then we were deciding it was okay for Tierney to have to try to get forward and defend two players at a time. A lot of times it was just so easy to pass around him. At some point, like, I know that people need to be yelling and screaming, but I feel like he would be yelling and screaming at the entire team. He's probably the only leader out there, really. Like, at some point, we have to these players, to me, lack a kick up the ass. Like, they just don't, there's accountability, like, from yourself. Then you need leaders. Then you need a manager that could get you up for the game. We don't really have any of that. So when I look at Tierney and I'm like, wow, he's being shafted. He's having to do all these, like, I mean, even for the second goal, the way that he ran over there, like trying to get to Reece James, like I think he realistically thought that somebody was back there tracking Reece James. He turns around and he's wide open. Tierney was basically left for dead in this game. And so him shouting, what is that going to do? And also, for me, this goes back to, so what if you played like shit in today's game, right? So what? Marie was terrible. You know, some other player didn't play well. Is there going to be any difference the next game? They'll start next game. I think there's a fundamental issue in this team in general. There's a lack of competition. There's a lack of kick up the ass. There's a lack of everything, because it's just like, what's going to happen if you play bad anyway? You're going to play the next game. Like, it's just, the problems at Arsenal are way deeper than just this game, you guys. And we can probably just say, okay, well, Chelsea's a better team than us. Fine. Whatever. Brentford, we had COVID cases. Fine. Whatever. But at a certain point, when we get to the Norwich game, the Burnley game, the Spurs game, the Watford game, we need to start picking up points there. So at some point, like, I do want to give it the benefit of the doubt, but at some point, these excuses will probably just run out. We'll see what happens, but this is not good enough. I'm sorry. I know you guys didn't feel like it's men against boys. That's fine. For me, it was just another game where we didn't look ready. We didn't look like we had anything going for us, really. Souls is here. Hey, Souls. How are you?
I'm fuming. I don't care. I'm done with this stupidness now. I'm done with it. I can't do it. I try and give this guy the benefit of the doubt. We've all said it. Look, go 5 back, match the man to man. I can't hear an Arsenal fan who said and back the 4-2-3-1. And then, okay, you're like, all right, fine. You know what? We had a good 10 minutes at the start where we looked and we might have gotten a goal. But then the defenders decided, you know what? What's Lukaku's biggest asset? His strength, his ability to hold you off. We wanted to get into a war with him. Why? Hold off him, intercept him, stop the spacing behind. But what we do is we play into their hands, and it's just like so many different things are going on. And then it's like, okay, first goal, yeah, all right, cool. It happened. We knew it was going to happen. Then you're like, all right, maybe Arteta just says to Saka, right, okay, till half-time, just tuck in, turn it into a 5-back. ESR, you go out wide to the left. Saka, come into a left wing-back position, and then we'll sort it out at half-time because we know we're getting exposed on that side. But what does he do? He goes to Tierney, stay on Lukaku, come in deep. The thing is, I'm not sure whether it's Tierney making that initiative to tuck inside or whether it's a coaching thing. Now, because we don't know what it is anymore. We don't know whether Arteta's telling him to do this or whether Tierney's not taking the initiative to look over his shoulder and see James has got all this space where you can literally park an 18-wheeler truck between them, and he's got all the time and space to make a cross. It's coming to the point where, who do we blame? Is it Arteta, or is it the players simply not responding to what he's asking? But it was simple. All it took was one position change to minimize that being 2-0. We go into halftime 1-0 down because we wouldn't have made that change before then. And then coming to the second half and try and take control. We did it last year where we went into a 3-5-back formation and we controlled the game against them. We hit them on the counter. It's not like we weren't creating opportunities, but we just can't buy a goal right now. And that's becoming, for me, a very concerning matter.
I won't blame Kieran. I just want to jump in. It isn't a tactical. I'll tell you right now. As a defender, when you have an overload, you pack the center. That's a basic instruction that whether you're a coach or you're even a basic defender, what you do in an overload setting, which he was constantly 2v1. You constantly take the center out because the outside option is the less penetrating one. So he was doing it right. The issue was not having help on that side. That's a tactical instruction. That's a tactical change, and that's falls at the manager's laps for not changing it. Even at halftime, I was very surprised that it wasn't changed. You know, like I get you may have wanted to try something new, and again, something brave, by the way, which I didn't agree with. But like, cool, I'll let it play out. And it didn't happen. I was annoyed that we didn't change at halftime, what was so clearly an issue for us. And I felt like we had an issue in back to front buildup. So for me, just add an option back there. Give somebody an option to help out. Like my issue is not only did we have an issue in build-up, but we also had an issue really in controlling the wings. So make a formation that is suitable for that 3-4-3. We all screamed it at the beginning of the game. So that was probably my biggest frustration. I felt for Kieran. I really did. I don't see this. I can't really blame him. I really don't, because he was overloaded every single time. And for me, it wasn't like, he didn't do something wrong that forced that issue. That was a system problem. And they were attacking it mercifully. And, I don't know. I think, as always, you look at these games, there are margins. There were some periods of good play. Emile Smith-Rowe receives in the box with a great touch, and, Azpilicueta reads it excellently in the second half. You're looking at Bukayo's entry into the box. For me, again, clear penalty. If that changes at those moments of the games, it's crazy to me that, you could see a switch, and I think the crowd were actually up for it, which was annoying because I think the fans did their part, and it wasn't, they weren't booing for no good reason. There was very good reason. I think we were just naive, and it's annoying because I feel like Arteta was one of the first coaches in the league to build this plan. Like, if you think back to last year where Tuchel was doing this to every big team, including City, Arteta's Stamford Bridge performance was the blueprint that many started using, and we did it. He did it then last season. I just don't know why you wouldn't do it this season, especially with your defenders out. So
I just feel like it was a personnel issue. I just think if we had Ben White fit and available, I think we would have had a 3-4-3 today. I just don't think he was comfortable with starting Kieran Tierney left centre back and then Tavares left wing back, or Saka left wing back. If Saka's not fit to track back, he's certainly not going to be fit to play left wing back.
Why not,
right?
though? Why not just start Chambers? You've been playing Chambers all this time. He can play right-sided centre back. He had other options. He chose to do this. And I get the personnel thing, but we've been talking about a personnel thing since last season. The last season, it was all somebody wasn't here, somebody was here. When this person gets here, it's going to change. He needs to adjust. We're not going to have perfect lineup every single time. I think Arteta needs perfect settings. I really, really do. And we're never going to have that. He could have played Chambers right-sided center back, holding through the middle and Tierney off of the left, or Marie if you wanted to.
Maybe he doesn't want to play a 3-4-3. Maybe he just wants to build a 4-2-3-1 and ride the ups and ride the downs for continuity, to make us better, to make us more resilient. Because what happens? Okay, so just say, for example, we play 3-4-3 today. We match up, we lose. We go to City, we match up, we lose. Then against Norwich, right, guys, let's go back to playing 4 at the back. Get creative. Get a spark.
Lose the dressing room. Emery did this exact same thing.
So I get it. I get that we have to change for the opponent. I get that. But, Tuchel's not changing for the opponent. Tuchel's formation is 3-4-3. So maybe Arteta just wants to ride out with a 4-2-3-1 to get the players used to playing out from the back, to get everyone just used to functioning in this formation. Because sometimes if you keep on going back, it feels like you're just going back and you're telling the team, 3-4-3. And best believe, if we go to a 3-4-3, it's because we know we're not good enough and we need to be defensive resilient. And that's almost giving everyone a green tick to say, right, just be hard to beat, be solid, don't worry about going forward. And some of our best moments today came because we're a little bit more braver going forward. I don't know. I'm just trying to look at other reasons.
Better managers have changed their stuff right in the middle of the game. I saw Rafa Benitez do it the other day. When you see things going wrong, you have to be flexible.
100%.
He doesn't have the team to be this. He doesn't have the team to be doing this. And I get that you want to create some continuity, but even in the same system, he picks different people. Cedric and Pepe, probably they play decent together. And I think it's always we know Pepe doesn't play good with Bellerin. We know that. So in the next game, I expect Cedric to be on with Pepe because Pepe had a decent game. If he changes it back to Chambers, that's on him. That's on him. A lot of times he does unnecessary changes, but then doesn't change it when it's not working. It's really, really weird. I don't think it's wrong to criticize Arteta. I really don't. He messed up today, 100%. And George said that, the fans did their job. I don't think the players went out there and I didn't see walking. I think Saka with him, maybe it was fatigue. I don't know what it was, but ultimately I saw a bunch of players that were trying, even Aubameyang when he came on, no service, still running around trying. The one person that didn't show up and didn't do what they were supposed to was Arteta, and we'll give him the fact that he doesn't have his best players. That's fine. But I have a suspicion that we're not going to have perfect settings. So he needs to know how to adjust. We can't lose against Norwich. We can't lose against West Brom in the Cup. We can't. Nobody's going to give him grace. We already lost against Brentford. We gave him that because of COVID. how much are we going to give him and start looking at him and say, results need to come, like at some point?
No,
You know,
But we
and I
also
do
need to
think
be
that
we need to be realistic that results need to come. But against Chelsea, Man City, it's hard enough as it is.
No. But Harry, I'm sorry, but there comes a point where you think, okay, is this guy even trying to change the results? Is that against Chelsea? We've all said it. He should have matched them. He has the personnel to match them. I'm sorry, I can't agree with he doesn't have the players to do a 3-4-3, or that there's a continuity issue, or any of this. Unless you're literally Man City, that you're going to pump money in and you're going to have one or two options per position. That's the only way you can have one system and just go for it and be a ride or die on that. But even with Pep, he will change things up if he needs to. If he absolutely thinks this isn't going to work, he'll try to do something different. And I think if we did that, if we went into a 3-4-3 and we lost, I think a lot more fans would be a bit more like, okay, you know what, that's what we asked for. But also there's a logic to it. If you look at how, Crystal Palace came and they gave them the wings and they gave them the wide areas just to do what they wanted to do, they got absolutely pummeled. And that, at least when we go into a 5-back, we'll be like, okay, we've identified where their threat is and we've tried to counter it. Okay, we haven't done well, but you can give him the grace because at least he's looked at the opponent and tried to do something to counteract their threat.
It's why I think for me it's hand in hand of both things being true, and this is why I feel like today Mikel was tactically wrong. You have to criticize him. Absolutely true, yes, but at the same token, I do see that there was a lot of players missing, and I still just don't agree that going 3-4-3, while it's what I would have done, and you can criticize the tactics of it all, but the likely outcome change with the amount of players out being drastically different, it wouldn't have been. And I'm more with you, Souls, where it's like you can defend the 3-4-3 because you gave the best chance to win. And that's where the defense is, but he didn't. And so you're like, okay, I have to criticize the coach for that. And it's fine. There's no issue with that. It's just my problem is going to doom and gloom after 2 matches where realistically, I've always said I want to see a 10-game spread, 5 of which with a starting 11. And I don't think it's unreasonable to expect more than 5 games with your starting 11 because really, when you look at it, Liverpool, who lacked their starting 11, and once they did get an adjustment with a much bigger quality team, you could see the impact that starting 11 players have on your team, let alone a team that is bereft of quality and nowhere near your surrounding peers. And it's just, I get that people want, like yourself, Jess, that wants a reaction, that you're not going to get a perfect situation all the time. For me, I just want at least one technical leader in every final third. Like, it's not just 1 or 2 players that are missing here. They are huge pillars across the spine of a team. And I think any team, regardless of coach, manager, whatever, will struggle to put consistency in their play and in their lineup with those types of players out. And so for me, I criticize him because I feel like he was not on it today. Like you said, I think Mikel was the one to blame, and he was. But at the same token, I want to see this with our players available. I want to see if he's choosing to persist with it
George, but
and
like,
die
if
by
he
his
can't
sword.
adapt because he's missing players. Look, Arsenal always miss players. That's just the reality of who we are. We always get injuries. The party's been injured multiple times. Taney gets injured multiple times. I'm sorry, if he can't adapt to that, he's not the right man for this job. When have you seen a spread of 10 games with these current players where they've not had an injury or there's not been a scare, there's not been,
But there
a moment where you have to
I don't
adapt?
want to freak out after 2 games because when I had the spread with injuries, we were second in the league with the profiles. When I looked at it, and with today, I saw clearly an unmatched team, that it wasn't just 1 or 2 players. It was the entire spine. We lacked a first-choice center-back pair. We lacked our first-choice midfielder. We lacked our first-choice striker across the entire spine of the team. And every third, we lacked our first choice.
But even with
and so
that, when have we looked like scoring?
I struggle, whether it was Arteta, Emery. I wouldn't have criticized Emery in that situation either. It's just I criticize him for the tactics where you could have set us up better to win. The outcome would have likely been the same, but you didn't choose to set us up properly like we did. And that's where the criticism should lie. I just don't agree that you then think that he's not the right guy after 2 games when you're looking at the squad and you're looking at what it is. I think you need a 10-game season to look at a pattern, at least 10 games for me, and at least 5 of which having your starting 11. And if you still choose to do the wrong tactics in those games,
So
then
he's
for me,
2 down because
that's
I've
enough
seen
evidence.
nothing in 2 games. So
Sorry?
that's 2,
And
right?
it's not
That's
even
2 already, like gone.
So
Because
it's not even just that though. Like there were games last season where he did have. I mean, he didn't have every single one against Villarreal. Who is he missing against Villarreal?
Tierney.
Xhaka, Tierney, Partey.
no, he had Xhaka. He put Xhaka
No, he
left
had
back.
Xhaka. Xhaka
No,
was
he
left
got
back.
out. He went out.
No, he went left back. He was playing left back for both games.
I don't think he was in the second
He-
game. He got out. He got injured.
Yes, I know what you're saying. With a near full strength team, there were games
Yeah,
last year that we weren't convincing enough.
he makes these. I mean, now it's like a really good, solid. Because you got COVID issues, you got injury issues. Your team hasn't gelled. No Odegaard, which is basically the only player that we bought in that we're waiting on for anything for, because Ramsdale is the goalkeeper. But there were signs of this last season where it's not like it was this bad, but he's not able to get as much out of the squad as I think he can. And I stand by the fact that I feel like Arteta kind of needs perfect settings for things to go his way. I really, really do. And he doesn't really get them that often. So we lose out on stuff, and that's not good enough for me. I see other teams that are not as good as us or pretty comparable that seem to be able to at least compete in games like this. I don't think we competed in this game. I think we were easily kind of shoved off to the side. It gave me Man City vibes of like, take the foot off the gas. We don't really have to be worried about did we really put them under serious threat? What I watched, I didn't see it. But I mean, it is what it is. Like, we'll know in the next couple of games whether or not he can handle it, because Tierney is now out. Gabriel and Partey will come back, but then some people will be like, well, he doesn't have his perfect left back. Like he's not going to have perfect settings.
That's football. And I'm sorry, it's football, but it's also Arsenal. I can't remember the last time where we haven't been riddled with injuries all season. He's part of overcoming these things, and he's had enough time, in my opinion, to really make a stamp. And you know what it is? I have tried to be positive with him, and I'm still hoping he changes this. And I hope it, because the thing is, right, it's like, okay, Brentford, okay, 2 hours before the game, you've lost your captain, talisman, you've lost Lacazette, another leader in the dressing room. You're like, okay, you know what, fair enough, you lost 2 key players. But you knew that going into this game, so that can't be the excuse like, oh my God, we're losing players. I understand you lost Ben White, a day before the game, or was that Friday? Well, a few days before the game, you had that little scarce with Ben White. But the thing is, it's like, you chose to bring in one centre-back. You've chosen to not improve the first team, but bring depth players and bench players in. That's what you get. And that's the lack of preparation. That's a lack of... I don't know. Look, I don't know truly who's signing off on these deals, or whether Edu and Arteta are genuinely sitting there together and going, no, this is the direction we want to go in. If that's the case, then he has no excuses, because he has been back this summer and he has got his players. But the thing is, in football, you're not going to always get perfect situation, but what you can control is how you try and tactically beat a game. And today he got it wrong. Brentford, okay, you can make excuses that it was COVID, he didn't have his players, he lost his players last minute, but I'm sorry, like, when has he truly shown us that? And also, don't forget, when we're losing in the first half, he hasn't been able to turn it around.
For me, there's good and bad. I just have a question, because I don't want us to go back into recency bias, because when I look at it, there's absolutely good and bad with this manager. He doesn't do everything right. He is not perfect. He doesn't do everything good. There are some very valid criticisms to what he does to his front line. We've said them before, but I'm asking, what is the level of you to switch? Because for me right now, what I'm seeing is I just don't feel that these 2 games and these 2 circumstances should have changed drastically your opinion from preseason, because I always felt, like we said, everybody would give him 10 games. And I don't see that. And I don't see that without his first team available. And it's not to say that he's perfect, and it's not to say that he's not. I just think it's very disingenuous to say that he hasn't shown an ability to produce consistency in results, when factually last season, for 60% of the season, with injuries, without his perfect team, but regardless having his profiles, that CV showed him second in the league, and that was enough for me.
Yeah, but all right, what happened before that, though?
Versus the 60. And for me, it's not a case of he's only perfect or he's only bad. He's shown good bits of both. But for me, I don't feel that from what he's been given, 2-3 games is a good enough sample size for you to switch.
No, but George, this is the perfect time for him to showcase that, to show us fans that he's willing to not be arrogant, to not be, because that is, look, the criticism was not from us.
But Arteta's changed. Arteta's played 3-4-3 before. When we had a
Yeah,
rough
but why
time
didn't
in
he
his
do it
first season,
today?
he played it. Because obviously he thought, for whatever reason, I'm not making excuses. There's
Starting
obviously
the game
a reason why he did it. There's obviously a reason why he did it, and there's a reason why he didn't adjust. And if it's just to him being stupid or having a real bad off day, then that might be the reason. But we all know that we should have changed mid-game, but we didn't. But there's context to all of this, and I find it slightly uncomfortable that it's literally like, right, no, this guy isn't the man. Because after we've just lost to the European champions, off the back of obviously COVID amongst the squad, it wouldn't surprise me now next week if there's 2 or 3 players who play today that are suddenly out for 10 days with COVID. There are some, we're in a really, really vulnerable position as a club as it is. Yet you go into the new season, COVID strikes the squad, some of your key players are out. How would Spurs get on against Chelsea without Dyer, Sanchez, Højbjerg, Son, Kane? How would they get on?
I mean, they didn't have Kane and they beat Man City, so...
No, I get that, Harry.
That's one player. That's one player. Are we good enough to miss Gabriel, Partey, Ben White, Lacazette and Aubameyang? Are we good enough? Because I know Martinelli's going to be great, and Saka's going to be great, ESR's going to be great, Balogun's going to be great, but are we good enough to miss all of these key players? Of course we're not. So losing against Brentford, you have to take each game in separate incidents.
1-1 with Man United. Are they good enough to lose their first choice centre-back pair, Connor Armstrong, who's now their new striker, as well as James Ward-Prowse? Do they win and tie the game 1-1 with those 4 players out? Is my retort to fans that want to cite inadequacy, and that's not to say that it's not good and that he wasn't wrong today, and that's not to say that his performance was good today, because it wasn't and it isn't. I'm just very, very uncomfortable giving 2-3 games when I've always said 10 games is a good stretch of games with good
I'll
and
give
bad,
you another stat.
despite injury issues.
Let me read this super chat first. Usopp says, Just the players still must play the game. Can't blame everything on the manager. We have been bad for a long time through different managers, but these are also different players as well. Like, I could understand if it was like, these are completely different players than what we had in the last 2 years. Like, there's no Mustafi, there's no Kolasinac, there's no Ozil. Besides what, Aubameyang, Lacazette, and Xhaka. Like, I get what you're saying, but I'm sorry. This one for me is on the manager. Like, it just is. Like, I can't really. I don't see that. What I feel like is that like lack of energy and intensity and that kind of stuff. I saw the energy and stuff. I just thought the tactics were really, really bad. But
I agree 100%. I agree 100% with you.
No, but that's the other thing. The reason why I'm a bit like I'm getting very, very concerned is because 14 or 15 games and we've been down in the first half and he's not been able to turn it around. 2 draws and the rest are losses. The thing is, look, I can accept, getting things wrong, but then when you're seeing things go wrong and you're not willing to change anything, you're not willing to say, you know what, okay, my plan A, it fucked up, right? Okay, cool. It's suicidal. Let me change it. And the thing is, he didn't need to make a sub to do that. All he had to do was push Saka back, put ESR on the left and try and compact that space, but he wasn't willing to change. He's died, and the thing is, I do like it. He wants to die by his sword, but for him to have the backing of the fans, I need to see that he can change situations or he can take control of a game to change the narrative or the outcome at least. But he's not willing to do that.
Have you not seen that in the last season? Because
but he's lost. But he's never won losing the first half. I'm sorry, he's never won.
Chelsea, the Chelsea game last season.
Yeah, but why is he never won losing the first half? How has he not been able to turn that around? Why is he never won?
That's because
it's not evidence that he doesn't do it or that he can't do it. That's where I'm drawing the line for me. Where today was a bad day and he didn't do it and he didn't get the job done. But to sit there and say that that's the context of his reign, I think is very, very disingenuous. We started in a 3-4-3 and lacked the players to continue it because coaches found it out. We then lacked a preseason to start a counter press, moved to a 4-2-3-1 with players that we don't have. We accepted it because that's the philosophy that we wanted to go. People were telling me that Emery was wrong to switch formations so often. He was wrong because he didn't have the players.
No, but you can
stick to a philosophy. But then we're starting to go back when we have a manager to do that. I'm just struggling that you constantly put a good person, an Arsenal man, through the Arsenal laundry machine, and we're back to the same point where we're looking at a bad performance where he got it wrong and contextualizing that as that is his pattern. And I'm uncomfortable with it, especially on two
But
games
it's
of the
not the
season.
14,
Pattern is
15
definitely
games.
not changing mid-game, though. I mean, we have to keep it 100. Arteta comes from the school of thought. My thing is, I'm going from what I've seen. He'll start off with something, and he's reluctant to change it mid-game. He does not make mid-game changes the way that other managers do. It's plan A and do plan A better. That is a pattern. It really, really is. And
I think that
He
has
makes
some legs.
subs at
I
the
think that
same
has some
time as
legs.
every other
I think that
manager,
has some
though,
legs.
guys. Like that
It
came
just
out
is.
last season. The
I
average
think-
substitution was the same for him in compared to other managers. So it's not just I think you're not Emery as a chameleon and he's not changing at 45 minutes, but he absolutely changes to the same degree as other coaches. And for me, it's just there's a reason
could
that
he
he doesn't
not told
want.
somebody to stay on Reece James? Like, do you see what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
this is what I mean. I
It's
think
simple,
I
isn't
feel
it?
like the substitutions are very like for like. So I get that he makes changes. They don't often change the narrative or the feeling of the game. But today it just feels like it's a really, really simple switch, and for whatever reason he didn't decide to do it. And it is what it is. But just as an overall thought, we are going to be bottom of the league in the international break. We're probably not going to score the goal. Like, that's it. I know that. I said at the start of the season, I back us to have a good, successful season and challenge for the top four. But I back us doing that, knowing that the first 3 games are going to be tough. I predicted 1 point from these 3 games. I always knew what it would be like. I knew we'd start slow. I feared that we wouldn't be ready. And I knew we are playing good teams. And say what you want about Brentford, they're a new side. First game of the season in a brand new stadium is always going to be tough, especially if COVID and you've got key players missing. A game against Chelsea, European champions, an elite team, now with Lukaku, is always going to be tough. Regardless of Arteta in, Arteta out, whoever it is, always going to be tough. Man City away is always going to be a horrible game. Always going to be horrible. So our egos are going to really, really hurt over the next few weeks. So all I'd say is that just try to be rational where we can, because fully expect us to go into that international break, 0 points, 0 goals scored. We're going to be 90th. We're going to be 20th. It's going to hurt. There's going to be a lot of noise. We're going to come back, and whether it's right or wrong, our season starts against Norwich, and that is when we kick on and we start to win some games. The confidence builds. We get our players back, and then we'll start to look like the Arsenal of the back end of last season. That's the way it's going to go. So however we lose to City, 3-4-3, 6-2-1, whatever it is, 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, the outcome's the same. The outcome is going to be the same, and it's all about how we recover against Norwich. That's it. That's just a fact. That's it. So we can really, really moan and analyse all of the things that the manager isn't doing against Chelsea, against Man City. We're playing 2 teams who we've all predicted to win the league. All predicted to win the league. So I don't know what else we expect. And this is not me lowering my standards, making excuses, accepting mediocrity, blah, 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 blah. Everyone tells me we're 8.
No, Harry,
Everyone keeps telling me we're not good. So
No, I just expect him to change and at least do something logical to try and combat what Chelsea are doing. You look, it's simple. You look.
I agree with that point, Souls. 100%. I agree
the thing
with
is,
that
for me, it's like
wholeheartedly.
what they did is exactly what they did at Crystal Palace, and it was like time and time again. The way they broke our defense was the same. It was taking it down to the left and then finding a cross ball to Reece James, and it was like every time it was successful. And I was like, okay, surely at some point, look. And this is a lack of leaders on the pitch. This is a lack of leadership, maybe from Arteta, or maybe there's a miscommunication from both ends, because someone should be taking the initiative to say, look, Reece James is their threat every single time they're looking for him. Tierney, we've all backed him to be a captain or whatever, right? But did he take that initiative? No, he was constantly away from Reece James when maybe that's what he should have done. But he was drawn to Lukaku. And then the second thing was, why are our centre-backs battling Lukaku? When you're getting bullied every single time. Someone should have thought, am I winning the strength battle? No. Okay, let me push off him. Let me just try and intercept the ball. Let me try and tackle him instead, rather than having this shoulder-to-shoulder strength battle and getting bullied every time.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, you guys. And I don't think we're not meant to just agree. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's perfectly fine. Like, I totally see Harry and George's point. And it's not that I feel like, okay, I'm going to just ignore the things that have made it difficult for us to do what we know we should be doing in these games. Like, I'm not saying that I don't see that we have inconsistencies in the team, keep players missing. I see that. My fear is that we get into the games, and I always said like October, November is where I'm really like, we need to start winning games. Transfer window will be shut. We'll be kind of like in the groove. We'll be on our way a little bit, but the excuses will become less and less. And not excuses, but people are not going to tolerate the stuff anymore. And my biggest fear is that we will continue to see injuries and we'll continue to get COVID cases because the bubble is not really there. We already have COVID within our team, that if we're not able to get those specific players, Tierney, Thomas, Xhaka, and Aubameyang and Odegaard on the pitch all at the same time for a good stretch of games, that he won't be able to recover, because he just doesn't seem to have the ability, in my opinion, to recover when things don't go, they're not perfect settings, but that's just my opinion. But we never do winners and losers on the show. We just kind of talk through it and just like the show is over. We never do it the way we're supposed to. But let's go around and just say at least who we thought could have been the man of the match. I would say that I didn't see the same really dead performance that I saw against Brentford. I did see people out there trying to make things happen. Of course, they were the kids. It always is them, right? I think Emile Smith-Rowe has a shout. Sambi has a shout. Some people thought Pepe did really well. Harry, who is your man of the match for today?
I mean,
you got to pick somebody.
I can't. I thought Leno made some good saves, but I thought he also fumbled a few. Honestly, I actually thought Rob Holding had a half-decent game, but maybe I'm wrong. I feel like I watched a different game because I thought Pepe was shockingly awful. So I don't know. Honestly, I can't pick one. Emile Smith-Rowe had a decent game in there. Yeah, Emile Smith-Rowe.
So do you think anybody put in a decent performance? Anybody that...
Is this only Arsenal? Or is it like man of the match of the game?
No, we can't pick a Chelsea.
Don't care about Chelsea, man.
Right, okay. I say Lokonga for me. I think
you guys, this doesn't align with what you guys were saying. You guys were saying that there were good spells in there. There were some good things. We were going forward. We just barely missed it. So there's got to be somebody that you can think of.
No, I think
Lokonga's clear for me.
Like for me, Lokonga, because he was the spark, or at least trying to be the spark. Like there was some vertical balls that he played, especially I think it was early on to Tierney, I believe it was.
There was to Tierney, there was to Aubameyang. That was too much purchase on it. That sent him clean through. He had a great game. I thought Lokonga had played.
I know people think, we lost 2-0, but he was, for me, again, the standout, and he held his own again. Against Brentford, he was the one spark we had. And again, against, Chelsea, the only one that, if he had the ball, I was like, okay, something could come from this.
Yeah, no, I just echo that. I think Lokonga had an excellent game. I thought he was running everything that was good through us came through him. Had excellent switches of plays. There wasn't just a Tierney, but he had 3 or 4 long switches between both fields. It wasn't just a Tierney, but he even had some great switches out to Pepe and Cedric on the right. And then, of course, his big one for me was with Aubameyang. I think just a little bit less pace on the ball, and Aubameyang's in there. And but he has the willingness to go up and look. My biggest issue with this midfield, and why Jess, me and you have wanted like an athletic midfield to look up, it was the intent. Like his first instinct is to look up and play the ball. It may not come off, which I don't think it did. I think it was actually a poor execution on that. He should have done better, but he looked up and the intent was there, and I think he just did that all game. I thought he was willing to receive under pressure, and so for me, he was our best player by a margin, to be honest with you. Emile and other players, for me, Pepe had a great first half and then a really shocking second half. And people had good moments, but I think he was consistent throughout the whole game. I don't think I felt as though he worried us ever. He was a release valve for us continuously. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely some people, and I'm obviously going to rewatch the game, but there were some players that were trying and did do some good things. It was just we were, again, pretty blunt in the final third. And the last thing that I'll just say is that at some point we need to get to a point where we just recognize that we just don't have the right pieces up top. Tierney put in good crosses. Some people were saying that he didn't cross it to the right spot. In my opinion, I feel like if you have a striker or somebody running into the box that can, anticipate You make more out of those couple of chances that we had at the beginning of the game. So we're still searching for that first goal. Who knows if it'll come against City? I doubt it. I kind of agree with Harry that our season will probably start against Norwich because Ben White is now out. He won't be there against Man City. So what, he'll need like 2 weeks. Gabrielle should be back. Thomas should be back. Hopefully Tierney will be probably, who knows.
Did
But
Ben White test positive for COVID?
He tested positive, so we don't know if he like has
it'll
it.
be 2 weeks.
10 days.
Because if you come in contact, I know he's double jabbed, so the rules changed a few days ago. So if you come in contact with someone, you just have to test negative, and then you can come back.
It's 10 days minimum. You need at least like a week of clearance. So he'll get lateral flow tests continuously. So 10 days minimum.
So, hopefully Norwich is not a great team. I'm not even against Man City. I'm like, it is what it is, but hopefully against Norwich, we can do something against West Brom and we can kind of turn this around. The season is not completely over. It's just weird to start it off this way, especially because I think we had anxiety about wanting it to go really different. And yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, you guys, make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. There's 243 of you guys watching on all platforms. Make sure you share this with a friend. This will be on audio, so if you are listening to this on Spotify or Apple, make sure you leave a review. Helps us get found on the audio channels. And we'll be back on Monday for the post-match show where we'll go more in detail about the performances and stuff like that and what we're going to do against Man City, and tactical breakdown on Tuesday for members. I know we have a new member here, but I will give you a shout out once I find you later because I can't see you anymore. But thank you. I saw somebody became a member, so thank you so much. Yep, we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.